item 11.0 is the Superintendent's Report. So we'll go to Dr. Greg Little.
Thank you very much, Madam Chair. I don't have a lengthy report tonight, but I do want to put something on your calendar. On October the 31st, we are going to have a ribbon cutting for the Palmetto College Lexington One partnership. We'll be sending you more information about that. I think it's going to be done at the mayor breakfast that day. We've been trying to figure out the best time to have that ribbon cutting, and I believe we finally have a time and place. We'll let you know the exact time. I believe it'll be at the Blowfish Stadium is where it's going to ultimately be. But there were plans, I think, maybe the Edmund McCain concert and all kinds of stuff. So there were all kinds of ideas. I think we've settled on the Blowfish Stadium.
Okay.
But we're
Exciting
again,
stuff.
it is very exciting. Although Edmund McCain won't be there, but
Okay. Still be exciting.
it will be very exciting because this partnership again really shows what happens when we work together and what we can bring to our community. Bringing higher education into Lexington One, I think, is incredibly important, or not just Lexington One, but into Lexington. You know, the idea that a community this vibrant, that a community this dynamic has to drive to go find higher education is really quite surprising. And so we are thrilled that this partnership continues to move forward. So we'll get you those details about that. With that being said, it is my pleasure tonight to introduce Dr. Erica Bissell, our Reading and Language Arts Coordinator, and she is going to provide a Read to Succeed update. As you can imagine, we have been very busy in launching our new English Language Arts curriculum and our reading and writing units of study. And every time you walk into an elementary classroom, you see some really dynamic literacy instruction taking place. And we're going to talk a little bit about the impact of this Read to Succeed on our school district. So Dr. Bissell, take it away.
Thank you, Dr. Little. Is this thing on? Yes? Okay. Thank you, Dr. Little, Madam Chair, members of the board. This is called an update because I presented similar information last year this same time. And so I've really tried to strategically just point out the changes and the updates to the Read to Succeed legislation. All of the information will be on the slide, and I am happy to share it with you after the presentation if you'd like to read it in more detail. But for the sake of time, I will move as quickly as possible. There, as just a reminder, are 8 components of Read to Succeed. Read to Succeed is also known as Act 284. The 8 components are listed here. I'm going to talk about the updates to each one very briefly. Reading plans, I've told you several times before that we have a state reading plan. The first plan was approved by the state board in June of 2015. We have been expected for the years since to have a district reading plan, and also each of our schools have a school reading plan. We have just realigned and redrafted our district reading plan to align to our new strategic plan, and so both are very tightly aligned and complement each other very nicely. Our schools did the same so that they would have plans that complemented not only our district reading plan, but also our district strategic plan. Interventions is the next component of Read to Succeed, and it is important to note, and I don't know that we've spent enough time focusing on the fact that Act 284 is a pre-K to 12 piece of legislation, and so Dr. Little very graciously complimented the work that he's seeing in our elementary schools, but I do hope that as you visit our middle schools and our high schools, you will see that work continuing to take place, and that reading and writing is a part of every child's daily experience in all of their core content, and even their related arts and all of their supplementary courses. And then to also remember that in our pre-K, sites, that we should also see literacy experiences, a rich literacy environment, and see opportunities for kids to be immersed in literacy as early as they come to us as 3-year-olds sometimes, and sometimes 4. And then also a note about intervention, one that the board had to, was challenged with a few years back, was that all interventions must be provided by certified teachers, and that was part of Act 284 and a change that we had to accommodate and find solutions for here in our district, and we did a wonderful job, and I think our response intervention program is stronger because of it. Early learning and literacy, the law requires that we have a readiness assessment and administer a readiness assessment to all pre-K and kindergarten students. The importance of readiness is that the assessment is literally assessing what kids' learn and know, and the knowledge and skills they come to school with. So it is not an assessment of our pre-K programs. It is not assessment of our kindergarten curriculum, instruction, or assessment. It is literally assessing what kids have received literacy-wise from birth to the time they enter our school. It does, though, provide us with some very important data to advocate for more 4K and pre-K programs, because what we're seeing is that students coming into our pre-K and coming into our kindergarten classrooms do not have the foundational literacy skills they need to hit the ground running and be as successful from day one to meet the high expectations of pre-K and kindergarten. Because kindergarten sure is not, it is not what it used to be. There are no naps, and there are a lot of high expectations, and if they don't come with foundational skills, they are behind before they even come in. Third grade retention. So this is the biggie. When I presented to you last year, this was just beginning to be on our radar. So beginning with the 2017-18 school year, which was last school year, a student, per the law, must be retained in the third grade if the student fails to demonstrate reading proficiency at the end of the third grade as determined by the state summative reading assessment, which is SC Ready. The law does state SC Pass, because that's when the law was written. So we have tried to update all our documents to ensure that our community and parents and stakeholders understand that SC Ready is the assessment that determines the conversation around third grade retention. Students who qualify for a good cause exemption may be promoted to fourth grade. And so there are several good cause exemptions, which basically provide opportunities for students who have had experiences that lead us to believe that they have had some intervention that would allow them to continue on to fourth grade and retention not be an appropriate placement for them or appropriate decision for them. There are good cause exemptions that can be considered for those students. So one of those, there are 7. I'm not gonna spend time going through each one with you. Again, I can provide you with all of this information after the presentation. But if students meet one of 7 good cause exemptions, they will be promoted to fourth grade and will not be candidates for retention. Okay, you'll see reference to some ESOL years of ESOL services. You'll see students with disabilities whose IEP or Section 504 has reference to student receiving intensive remediation in reading. You'll see those who have been previously retained are also may be applied a good cause exemption. So if they've already been retained once, it's not automatically that they can't be considered for third grade retention, but it's definitely the good cause exemption can be explored. The good cause exemptions are very detailed, and you must meet them letter for letter. So a lot of times we have to be very cautious that when you see, oh, they're in our ESOL program, or they've already been retained, or they have an IEP, automatically they cannot be considered. That is absolutely not the case. We have to meet the exemption word for word and line by line. So we've been helping our schools ensure that they know for sure that a child meets the exemption before we take them out of the retention conversation.
And the max is 2 years, it looks like? The slide before, I think. So it's 2 years that we would hold them in third grade potentially?
No. Which?
2 years
Number
of
5.
reading intervention.
Who have received, so prior to their third grade year, if they have received 2 years of reading intervention and they've already been previously retained, they cannot be a candidate for third grade retention.
Okay.
So you have to kind of go back and say, okay, that would be kindergarten year, first grade year, second grade year. So if any of those years they received reading intervention and they were retained either in kindergarten, first or second grade, then they cannot be retained again in third. No, the retention, if they are candidates, is only for that additional third grade year.
So it's just one more year. Okay.
Yes, I appreciate you asking for the clarification. And then you'll see the last 2 exemptions are really related to what happens after they take SC Ready. So number 6 is a portfolio documenting that they have mastered state standards in a reading level equal to or at least one level above the lowest achievement level. So that's, for example, if they do not score MET or the second level of not met on SC Ready, our state assessment, we can use other forms of documentation to justify their promotion to fourth grade. And then seventh exemption is successfully participating in the Read to Succeed Summer Reading Camp, which several of you have come out to see our celebration at the end of our past very successful camps. So if they participate in summer reading camp and then are administered another assessment at the end of camp and receive a particular score or above, they can also be promoted. So 7 ways that we really are working to ensure that every 3rd grade child is promoted to 4th grade, but also with the caveat that we're providing all of the interventions to them as early as they need them, because early intervention is definitely the thing that's going to prevent that need for retention in 3rd grade.
Do you have insight in why they pick 3rd grade? Because we've talked before, you know, in 2nd grade, you're
Earlier.
learning to read, and then in 3rd grade, you're reading to learn. So why 3rd grade?
So there's a lot of buzz around the reading proficiency of students in 3rd grade. That's how you determine how many beds you need in your prisons, and there's all of this correlation data. It's also the first year that they take a standardized test. So
Okay.
it's one of the first times you'd ever have data to really hang your hat on to say, oh, that child isn't reading on grade level.
That makes sense.
And then also, we've looked at some other laws in some other states and followed their lead.
Gotcha. Okay.
So,
It's read to achieve in North Carolina. It's an identical law.
and Florida has one.
And so for kids who are transferring between states, this, in theory, has some consistency.
Possibly, and or looking for that thing that's gonna
Right.
put the fire under us to kind of get us, you know, I think the retention piece is the piece that draws the most attention. But there's a lot of conversation and discussion that is 3rd grade really, but that's really what it's based on, is it's the year you have the data, it's the year they say is a predictor for the success of children beyond, and it's following suit of some others that have tried it, though not very successful, but they've tried it.
I'd also like to add, if you'll recall, we added 8 new intervention positions this year in our elementary schools. And how we assigned those, we looked at the number of, and I hope I'm not stepping on any of your future presentation here in the next couple
Stole my
minutes.
thunder. No,
But
not
we
at all.
did do that. We assigned where schools still had large number of kids who were not being served, and we assigned, we landed on 8, I believe that number was, of new interventionists, in large part because of this.
And Dr. Little really just highlights the collaboration within instructional services and across divisions to ensure that we have the supports and the teacher resources and student resources we need to be successful and to move students and intervene as early as possible.
Quick question.
Sure.
And I don't want to go off on a tangent, but I participated in a webinar today that the School Board Association sponsored, and it was the Education Oversight Committee's presentation about the new school report cards. And I was just curious, the kindergarten readiness assessment, is that the one that's referenced in the school report cards that's going to be part of the reporting?
Yes, it's called KRA.
Yeah.
And it stands for Kindergarten Readiness Assessment, and all of our kindergarten students take that at the beginning of the year. And that will be the data that was reported, yes. So this is the communication plan. So a part of the retention piece of the legislation, it's all about communication. What the, if you can say positive, one of the benefits that we've seen from the whole retention conversation is it's encouraging us to have early intervention conversations with parents. So rather than getting to 3rd grade and saying, oh, surprise, your child's not reading on grade level, it's really causing us to start in pre-K and K and 1 and 2, and as soon as we see that there's a deficit, to have conversations with parents about how we can collaborate in order to help that child make the progress they need to make. Throughout the whole 3rd grade year, there is a ton of communication that is legislative requirement. We have to contact all 3rd grade parents in the first quarter to make sure they're aware of the legislation and aware of the possibility of retention, not to cause alarm, not to say, you know, we were really nervous about whether or not that would get everybody, you know, a little heightened and concerned. It's really just, this is something you need to be aware of. If this is something that we need to talk further about, we'll reach out to you in quarter 2. We've encouraged all those meetings to be face-to-face. But again, it has encouraged conversations much earlier. And so that communication is key. And once we have a partnership with parents, a partnership with community organizations, we have volunteers, we have mentors, all of this becomes so much easier to make sure that all hands are on deck and moving these kids forward and getting them where they need to be. So summer reading camp, as we prepared, it's a process. It starts in quarter 1 when we start talking about summer reading camp. So we wrap it up in the very last week of July, and we start talking about summer camp again pretty much in August, because it's a process on how we determine who's going to be invited to camp. So I am not going to belabor the point. Summer reading camp used to be Not as high stakes as it is now, but since last summer was the summer when that became a good cause exemption. And so it has a lot more expectations tied to leading up to it, and then the expectation of students to be there day in and day out so that we can give them the intervention over the summer that they need to help them be ready to move on to 4th grade. One thing I did want to note, though, we had 90 students attend summer reading camp, and only 2 of the 90 were required to attend per the qualifications of the legislation. So in quarter 3, we used our data dashboard that Dr. Phillips has shared with you in the past, and I think is going to revisit with you next month, to kind of anticipate students who we think are going to be candidates for retention. So we don't know anything until they take SC Ready. Well, they don't take SC Ready until the last 20 days of the school year. So it's a little late to invite kids to summer camp at the end of May, when we're expecting that they have to attend 96 contact hours during summer camp. So in quarter 2 and 3, we start to use our data, which we feel like we have very good projections of students who we think may get flagged on SC Ready. And so we then invite them to camp. The amazing thing, and one that I think is really telling to the piece that Dr. Little pointed out about intervention and the collaboration, is that 90 students attended camp based on the invitation, and only 2 of them actually flagged on SC Ready and were required to attend. So, you know, we have a lot of work to do. Our work is never done. We want every child reading beyond their grade level expectations. But it is amazing the commitment of our parents and our community. They see an opportunity for their kids to continue to learn and grow over the summer, and they made sure their kids were there for 96 instructional hours over the summer, which is a huge commitment. So I just wanted to point that out. Just a little bit about our summer reading camp location. This year was at White Knoll Elementary School. We tried to give a 2-year stint because it's a lot of juggling on the custodial and housekeeping staff to kind of clean around the camp. But White Knoll was a very gracious host. We had 90 students attend summer reading camp. We also run an ESOL reading camp simultaneously that is not related to Read to Succeed. 40 students attended that camp, and we run so we can share resources. Our employees, we employ a lot of folks over the summer for summer reading camp. 1 lead teacher, 1 special ed push-in teacher, 15 classroom teachers, 3 interventionists, 3 related arts teachers. Students have related arts every day. Does not count as their instructional time. 1 library assistant, 1 front office staff, 2 housekeepers, 9 bus drivers, and 1 dispatcher. And our partnerships include Lexington Main Public Library, our food service. We do leverage the free feeding program. So we also always host at a site that has the free feeding program. So breakfast and lunch is included for all of our campers every day. So that kind of determines where we're going to host our camp. So we've had Saxe-Agatha, Red Bank, and now we're going to go into our 2nd year at White Knoll. And then just as I move away from retention, because that's the hottest probably topic.
May I interrupt you very quickly? One thing I want to say about the summer reading camps that I also think speaks to the high quality of your leadership and your teamwork out there is the high quality teachers who volunteer every summer. They don't volunteer. I mean, they're paid, but they keep coming back year after year after year, and they're teachers from across our school district who serve a variety of school populations. That's one of the things about that program that I'm always most amazed about, that teachers continue to sign up enthusiastically to give up time in their summer to serve these students.
Thank you for pointing that out, and I will tell you that those who serve at summer camp say it is the most rewarding experience that they have, and it is also one that grows them, one of the experiences that grows them most professionally, because it is as a challenging job to work with our striving readers who just need that extra. It's about social, emotional, academic. It's everything when you go to summer camp. And I see kids in our schools, I've seen them in the fall, and they recognize me, I recognize them, we have a connection, and I check in and see how they're doing in 4th grade, and they want to come to summer camp every year. I have people say, are you doing an alumni camp? I'm like, no, I wish I could, and I've talked to Mr. Anderson several times. You know, we would love to expand. This is a state-funded, this is an opportunity that is state-funded, so it's in legislation, and they actually do provide us funds to support it, which we are very thankful for. But it is an amazing experience, and if we could offer it to every child, we would, because the kids love it. They want to come every day. We have stories of kids who don't want to. We got to figure out why they're not wanting to go to school during the regular school year. That's something we've got to own and figure out what's the missing piece there. But for some reason, there's something about camp, and I think it's the social, emotional, academic connection with the wonderful teachers that come out. Educator preparation, this is another component of Read to Succeed. So at this point in time, all South Carolina teacher prep programs have had their coursework approved, so that all of our graduates from this point forward have the Read to Succeed endorsement that is required per the legislation. So a lot of our teachers who aren't recent graduates, they're trying to get all this coursework in a variety of ways, and I'm going to talk about that in just a second. But those teachers who are graduating from one of our South Carolina teacher prep programs, they have the coursework required to meet the legislative requirements. So that has been a big help to us and definitely a cost savings for them. And as far as educator endorsements for teachers who are already in the profession, they have 10 years or 2 renewal periods in order to complete their requirement. And I work very closely with Dr. Natalie Smith, who is our new coordinator of professional learning, and we have pathways galore to help teachers to meet the expectations and the requirements of the legislation. So they have to have coursework to continue to hone their craft as reading and writing teachers. And then lastly, we have literacy coaches that are also state funded, and we are very grateful for that as well. They are school-based reading literacy coaches, but they are employees of Lexington One. And my red comment there is our literacy coaches are amazing. And I think if you asked any principal, you can ask teachers, you can ask students even who have the opportunity to work with them. They are a true asset to our programs. They're an asset to our curriculum instruction and assessment. And they are I can't say enough about them. I'm so lucky to work with them each and every day. So, oops, that was the most important one. This is our goal, and Dr. Talley and I were talking this morning about the presentation, trying to figure out how to end. We have a lot of good things going. We know our work is never done, and we will not be satisfied until each child is reading on grade level and progressing through our system with all of the skills they need to be successful once they leave us.
Wonderful. Yeah.
Before she sits down, any questions or comments?
I just want to make 2 comments. I was fortunate enough to get to go. I think I've been every year since you've had the camps pretty much, and it's just wonderful. But I think one of the things that I'm most amazed by is how your teachers tie in the curriculum that the children are going to be exposed to in 4th grade. Mm-hmm. So I'm kind of making this up because I can't remember, but say they're going to be doing space study for one of their science units in 4th grade. They go ahead and expose those children to some literature that involves space study. And I think anytime you can help these children, they're already struggling, and you give them a leg up. I just was so impressed with everything you do that you're setting these children up for success. And this is a comment for Dr. Little and Dr. Talley. I just listened to this, and the way this ties in with the proposal that we've submitted to the community for the 4K centers in Pillion and Gilbert, I mean, just talk about a dovetail. It is just, it's time for us to make that connection and start them early. And those 4K centers, I just think, will only make this program stronger.